Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everybody, to the Potapalooza version of Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to empower you as a leader to grow your business or take it to the next level. As some of you know, a great passion of mine is, though, to work with the youth to find their voice. And I am so excited to have Dr. Katona Linn as my guest today. And so, as I always do with a podcast, I ask a simple question of my guests, which is first, where are you located? Where are you calling in from?
Yep. So thanks for having me. I am located in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. It's kind of the central eastern a little bit. If anybody knows where Knoebels Grove Amusement Park is, I live close to that. So
I'm originally from Pittsburgh.
Oh, awesome. Pennsylvania girl.
Yes, ma'am. So what is a little bit of background? We don't have a lot of time on this Potapalooza, but just give us, that elevator pitch of what it is that you do and why you do this.
So I'm an educational consultant and coach, and I help schools create safe, supportive, and successful environments through coaching and training. And I really focus a lot on helping them to create safe spaces for not just the kids, but for the staff, for families, for everyone. And I have my own childhood trauma story that impacted me. And I was really I was under the radar in many ways. And yet I self-medicated and it impacted me in a lot of ways that were kind of hidden. So as I finally in my early 30s, I had kind of that journey of healing, and also became a special educator at the time because I felt like I got the kids. So anyway, so that's kind of why I do what I do. And I realize that teachers often don't get a lot of training in, really behavior and classroom management and all of those things. So I was a state project director for Safe Schools, Healthy Students. And now and it came out of the Sandy Hook Columbine shooting. So now I'm continuing to do that work just on my own with my company. And I work directly with schools mostly. And so just excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so aligned. We were discussing earlier how what I find as I'm working with kids to learn how to be comfortable speaking in public, whether it's with one or two people or a classroom. And that's the thing people need to understand, that the fears that we have as adults in talking at meetings or whatnot really started from the time we were very, very young. And the trauma that you discussed, that so often, especially for women, we just put it under the covers, press it down. We have to be strong.
Yep.
And it doesn't help us.
No. And it doesn't go away.
And it doesn't go away. It actually, I think, ferments and grows into worse things. So how can you, as you're approaching a school or a family community group, whatnot, what is the first few things that you look for in those initial discussions that will help guide you to help them grow and overcome the walls that they built?
Yeah, great question. One of the big things that I do early on is I do focus groups. So I meet with all aspects, all stakeholders, all people, families. I get students, teachers from all the grade levels, admin, anybody else, and really talk to them about what are the strengths and what are the areas of growth that need to grow, and how would also, what are the suggestions they think, and how would they like to be involved? So really just asking those questions, it helps people to think about stuff that they may have not thought about ever, or not, they don't think about it regularly, especially in schools. It's like, here, you're doing these things. We have things that we have to do. And so just asking people alone helps them to feel like they are empowered to have some decision in what's going on in their school. So that's kind of one of the first things. And I do mapping. So I look at what are all the different things that you have going on, and a lot of what I do is around kind of school mental health and bully prevention and positive behaviors. It's just that all of those different initiatives can actually interfere with each other if they're all in silos. And so my first thing is really looking at what do you have, so that we can then break down the silos. So whatever you're doing now and in the future is actually going to work more effectively and efficiently. So those are kind of some of the early things that I do. And a big piece is around staff wellness, because if the staff are not able to manage their own emotions and really, manage their own behavior even, then they're not going to be able to support the kids. They have to put their own oxygen mask on first. And so I try to, look at doing that. And I do some training as part of that, as well as coaching.
I think that's an important point that you make about the staff. And as we mentioned earlier, a lot of us have baggage of our own. And so seeing the issues that the students might have, the way that we were taught to overcome it may cause us oftentimes to say, like, toughen up, or, no crying in baseball kind of thing, rather than really being that advocate for healing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that takes courage. And a lot of times it's easier to look the other way, but it actually makes it worse, which I think COVID kind of brought up things to the surface that were already there. It's not that there are new things going on. I mean, there are some, but there were a lot of ththings that were already happening. So
I know for some people, some of the students, COVID was like a breath of fresh air for them, because all of the bullying, the things that they were living through, now they're at their home. Their schooling was going to hell, but they were feeling more comfortable because they weren't in that daily war, if you will.
Yeah.
But whenever it came time to go back, there was a lot of trauma.
Yeah. And there are some kids who their home was not safe, and they were stuck at home. So that made it, again, they couldn't wait to get back to school. So we have kind of a whole spectrum of kids that had different experiences. And, it was a lot of trauma. I know our granddaughters, my stepdaughter homeschools them, and because they were struggling, and she's continued to do that because they were going to start back the next year doing virtual. And she's like, oh no, we're not, like, it was so stressful that year. And and again, I think a lot of schools have figured things out, but that was their option. And, they have that privilege to be able to do that. And so many kids just, whether it's a single family home where the parent couldn't really help them with things, those are all some of the challenge. So there was really a whole spectrum of different experiences for kids. And trauma really was kind of a collective trauma, not just for even the kids. Again, it's for the adults as well.
I think that the next probably decade is going to be very telling, and how we deal with it. And thankfully we have people like you that are dealing with it. But I think that there's a lot of things that are going to come out of it, things that if you think back, I'm 65, so I think back in the years of the various wars that we had, but even going a little further to when my husband was young and they had the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that didn't impact him personally.
Right.
but he knew of it. And that was always in the back of his mind as he was growing up. And so now you have this whole generation of people that were at least maybe 4 years old that could kind of figure out there was something different going on, that are going to be having sort of worry each time a new virus comes. Will this be another one? Will this be another one? And how is that going to impact their truly living life?
Yeah. I think there's a lot more fear in general, especially from the kids who have spent a lot of time at home.
Yeah.
That kind of separation anxiety, as well as, there was just this angst that everybody had in many ways. So yeah, definitely has created a lot more. We see a lot more anxiety, just a lot more stress in general. And there are a lot of, like I said, I was kind of under the radar. There are a lot of kids that they may be going to the nurse, and they may not be having problem behaviors, but if they're going to the nurse pretty often, or if they're missing school a lot, it could be because of their own anxiety, and so if we wait until everything is falling apart, we've kind of seen how it's already going. And so, my goal is to really focus on, all right, what can we do to prevent it and mitigate as much as we can so that it doesn't escalate any further. So.
And I think I have heard you talk a little bit on this before, but would you just touch a little on the impact of social media in what you do? Because we know that more kids than that have their phones. They're not supposed to have them in school, but they do. And so that adds another level of trauma to their development.
Yeah, because they can't get away from, like, especially if they're cyberbullying, they can't get away from it. Whereas when I remember when I was in school, I go home, and once I left that door of the school, I was free until I got back there, And so, whereas kids now, they don't get to escape that. And the pressure and kind of that, comparison, looking at other kids and other people in general, you don't see the real thing on there. There are obviously some good parts of social media, but there are some parts that are not quite, helpful. And so the fact that they're just spending more time on technology in general and doing less physical activity, playing, collaboration, doing collaborative things with playing on a team, or, something like that, being involved in scouts, that a lot of kids were not doing as much of that. And so that kind of squashed a lot of the skills that are those skills that are extremely important for us to be successful adults. And so, that isolation, and just communicating through a phone versus talking one-on-one, like being able to read somebody's body language, picking up those nuances that we don't even often realize that we do, but some of those things are missing. And obviously, again, our country is so polarized in so many ways, and that's perpetuated in schools. They're not in isolation. It's like this constant bombardment. So
if you, for 1 minute, will put on the parent's hat, and then I'd want you to put on the child's hat. So that the parent, how should, understanding that there's that, I should invade their privacy. Well, they're your kids, but anyway. So you have that mindset going on, like I want them to like me and not think I'm spying on them, but you need to be sure that things are okay. So what are some signs, and some advice you'd give for the parent, and then thinking later about from the child, the student, if they're having things going on, cyberbullying or whatever, what advice do you give to those students as you're talking to them to make them feel comfortable and confident to raise their voice, to share? So go ahead. And
one of the big things, so for parents, Kids actually need boundaries, and the more trauma they've been through, they need them even more. So, and it's not a boundary of like, I'm going to put my fist down or thumb, whatever, my foot down kind of thing. It's more of, these are the things that we will accept and not accept, and they're non-negotiable, kind of like it's that structure so that kids actually understand the consequences. Like they, whereas if the consequences are inconsistent, that alone is going to be stressful for kids. So the more, and not just consequences, positive things as well, the more we actually have those structures. And so that could include having like timers on your computers, and for parents to use things that limit kids' screen time, that is not you telling them what to do. It's automatically on their phone. And maybe it's a challenge that the entire family does, because a lot of times adults are like, well, you can't be on the phone, but then they're on the phone. It's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
And so, but when you put boundaries, that helps takes it away from you being the bad guy. That makes the phone, app or whatever, the boundaries, they're kind of natural consequences. So those are ways to help kids, and kids actually they feel better about themselves because they understand those boundaries, and they learn then how to put those boundaries up for themselves. Because I know I really struggled with that as a kid. I didn't know how to have boundaries, and they were trampled on, and I didn't know how to speak up for myself. And so, letting kids know it's okay to say no. Like, we want to actually teach kids to say no, because what happens is that we teach kids to be compliant. And then, I went to 13 years of Catholic school. That's not a good thing, to just be compliant and do what people tell you, especially when they're trying to abuse you. So, we just want to make sure that we're giving kids choices as well as boundaries within whatever it is that we're doing. So that's a great way to do kind of with social media. In terms of kids, I always, one of the gifts of the trauma that I've been through actually, I think, helps me to be more aware of, like, because I remember it so well. Like I said, I wrote my book and I remember it all. So because I remember my own experiences, it helps me to have more empathy for the kids. So I can kind of relate to what they're going through, and I understand. I try to give them what I needed. And so one of those things is just being with them and helping them feel safe, and let them know I'm there and that I care. We don't have to have the best, speech to give them. We just need to let them know that we care, and that can be that we care. And that could be little nuggets that we put in throughout the day. How was your day? Little simple things that we can ask, and sometimes they may not care, but keep going. Just keep, like, hey, I want to make sure that you're feeling safe. And I also want to have, I'm going to have boundaries, so that we don't want to let kids just do everything that they want, because that's going to damage them.
Yeah. I found whenever I work with the kids, especially in those first several times, it's that building that trust. And I listen a whole lot, ask those open-ended questions, but I listen and I don't judge them. And when you start to do that, in some cases, one of the things that I do is I evaluate their talk as well. And I always tell the teachers that it's sometimes the only time that child has had somebody for 4 minutes straight that didn't interrupt them. And they completely listened enough to what they said to be able to feedback what they did well and how they could improve. And I think as teachers, parents, friends, we need to take that into account, so that as we model the behavior that we want, that those kids will see how they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Modeling is such a huge piece. Again, we have to kind of put our own oxygen masks on first, and what healthy relationships are for kids and healthy behaviors. So,
yeah. So if there was just 2 tips, nuggets that you would want to leave the audience with today, what would those 2 things be?
it would definitely be for any adults who work with kids. Make sure that you're putting your own oxygen mask on. What are little things that you could do? Deep breathing, some little teeny things that you could do throughout the day. You always have your breath with you. Drink some water. When you're sipping, you're actually breathing. Those are just 2 quick and easy things. And the other is just really focus on that we are models for the kids. And so that we want to be the best us that we can be, because that's going to have the greatest impact on the kids. We can't think that, we can't do what we say, but not what we do. We've got to model it. So
drinking water also keeps you from saying something you'll be sorry for.
Yeah. That take a break, like the Kit Kat bar.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I definitely want to have us keep to stay connected so that we can do more things together. But would you share your website with our audience, please?
Sure. It's www.katonalinnconsulting.com. And I have a free gift. It's the 3 ultimate strategies to quiet the stress storm in your classroom. And I also have a home version with some variations in there. And then I also have a book, Shedding Lies, Living Beyond Childhood Trauma, that is on sale now on Amazon, the ebook. And then you can, if you want to book a call with me, you can do that and we can see how I can help you.
Awesome.
So thank you.
And all of her information will be on my website as well as YouTube whenever I post this. So if you didn't get all that, just make sure you go to my website or my YouTube channel and be able to download that information. Once again, Dr. Ann, it has been great meeting you and chatting with you. And as I always say, life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.